The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Tuesday, October 21st. I hope everybody's having a great start to your week. Yeah, we've got a full deck in terms of topics to talk about, and we will jump into that. Just a quick reminder, ask Super Chat questions. That way you get to frame the show. You get to determine what I talk about. I talk about what, I answer your questions. So it's a great way to make the show interactive. So please consider a Super Chat, or if you just want to support the show, value for value, stick 'em. All right, let's jump in. I mean, the roller coaster is not the right term. I don't know what the right term is. The Trump-Putin, U.S., Russia, Ukraine stuff that's going on. It's just unbelievable. It's how anybody can trust Trump or has any positive view of Trump, given his behavior towards Zelensky and towards Putin, is just beyond comprehension. I mean, here he is, leading up to last week. Trump was all gung ho. We're gonna give Zelensky new missiles. We're going to make them strong. They can attack any way they want. He was super friendly to Zelensky in a couple of meetings that they had, and he was super aggressive in NATO and very pro-Europe, and came out, swinging against Putin and everything. This is after he'd met Putin in Alaska, convinced there was going to be a peace deal, and then Putin basically ignored him, and basically during the meeting, supposedly in Alaska, the meeting was cut short because Putin wouldn't compromise. He would not negotiate around peace that Trump was pushing. So Trump gave it a couple of weeks to kind of see, and then walked away from Putin and kind of went seemingly all in on Zelensky and was nice to him, and was ready to arm him to the teeth, and which is what should be done and what needs to be done. And it's the only way to end this war. The only way to end this war is one party wins and one party loses. That's the way wars end. And I think I want Zelensky to win. I want the Ukrainians to win. Russia is the aggressor. Russia is the evil empire here. And the good guys should win. And that means Ukrainians. And we should support them winning. And that way the war will end. Wars end when one party wins and the other loses. So Trump seemed to be moving in that direction. Everybody's whoa, all excited. And then Trump was going to meet with Zelensky. At the meeting, supposedly Trump was going to sign off on Tomahawk missiles and all kinds of other weapon systems and fully support Zelensky and Ukraine. And then Putin called him the night before, and they had a long conversation. And Putin somehow convinced Trump, again, that no, this war was caused by Ukraine. Russia's not the bad guys, Ukraine the bad guys. And Putin wants peace. It's Zelensky that's stopping the peace. And he's willing to compromise, and there's got to be a deal, and we should go for peace, and don't give them Tomahawk missiles. And Trump came out of that meeting. It's as if Putin has this ability to completely brainwash him or squeeze him in some way. I don't know what Putin has on Trump, but he has his buttons. He knows exactly which buttons to press. So Trump goes into the meeting over the weekend with Zelensky on Friday, actually, and blasts Zelensky and publicly says, Zelensky started the war, and if you start the war, don't come asking me for missiles. If you start a war, you should be positioned to win it. You shouldn't. I mean, Zelensky didn't start the war. Ukraine didn't start the war. Russia started the war. This is not hard. This is like a 4-year-old would get this. I've often said Trump has the economic understanding of a 5-year-old. He has the understanding of foreign policy of a 5-year-old. Worse, actually. A 5-year-old would get it. And I'm sorry, I know some of you still think Trump is good, better than whatever, and this and that. And Yaron, stop being such a leftist. Stop being worse than MSNBC. Yeah, I'm more consistent with them and MSNBC. I've always thought Trump was a disaster, and I continue to think Trump is a disaster. And he continues to prove me right, and you guys wrong. It's not even pragmatism. This is complete and utter whim worshipping. Okay, so over the weekend, he lambasted Zelensky. By all accounts, he treated him horribly in the meeting behind closed doors, threw maps around, didn't want to look at maps, too many maps, don't care about maps, blames Zelensky for the war, blames Zelensky later in a press conference for the war. It completely went after and announced that he is going to meet Putin in Budapest, and they're going to cut a deal. They're going to cut a deal. There's going to be peace. It's just a matter, next week. They were going to meet next week in Budapest. So in preparation for the big Budapest meeting where peace is going to be announced, Marco Rubio, had a call this morning, or yesterday morning, with the foreign Russian minister, Sergei Lavrov, in order to kind of prepare the grounds. This is what happens when, the leaders meet, the underlings meet beforehand to kind of prepare everything and get everything aligned so when the meeting happens, it all goes well. Well, in this meeting, and I've told you, Marco Rubio is the only one in this administration that I know of that has the right position on Russia-Ukraine. So Marco Rubio goes to meet with Lavrov over the phone, I guess. And he discovers that Lavrov is like, yeah, nothing's changed. We want full control over the Donbass. And we're really, the Donbass means the eastern Ukraine, and we're not going to give in an inch. We want control over those areas, and we haven't changed our position, and nothing has changed. And, Lavrov told reporters that, quote, I believe American officials have concluded that Russia's position has remained largely unchanged over the time and remains within the bounds of its initial maximalist demands. We've always known that. Russia's not compromising. What did Putin tell Trump on Thursday that led him to think that this was not true? I'm sure nothing. What did Putin tell him in Alaska that would suggest that Russia's position has changed? I'm pretty sure nothing. I mean, the reality here, this is not my interpretation. This is reality. Putin completely manipulates Trump. Completely, utterly. So Lavrov basically told Rubio that Russia has not changed its mind. It wants a comprehensive peace deal in which it gets everything that it wants and gives up nothing. It does not, and this goes back to Alaska, it does not want, it does not accept Western security guarantees for Ukraine. It does not accept any kind of peacekeeping troop in Ukraine other than Chinese or Russians. So basically, yesterday, Marco Rubio went to Trump and I guess the White House officials and said, look, we can have a meeting, but Russia's not changed its mind on anything. Anything. And this morning, it was announced that the meeting is off, that Trump will not be meeting Putin in Budapest. And basically because what would be the point? What would be the point? Nothing has changed. But Putin achieved one goal, and that is Zelensky didn't get his tomahawks. And Trump again lashed out at Zelensky. So, anyway, The bottom line is Zelensky is not getting what he wants. Trump is not getting a meeting with Putin. We know, Lavrov is a mouthpiece for Putin, always has been, continues to be. And the reality is the meeting between Putin and Trump has been canceled. And again, it's so we're back at the status quo. We're back at where we were before this meeting, before the whole Tomahawk discussions were going on, before the United States was going to ramp up support for Ukraine. All of that is gone, and yet there's no advancement on the peace plan and that's dead. And Trump is now soured on Putin and soured on Zelensky. And I mean, what the hell is he doing? The guy is a complete and utter emotionalistic, unprincipled, what do you call it? He just goes by whatever he feels like. And there are people out there, for whatever reason, it's hard to tell exactly why, but there are people out there who are really, really good at manipulating him. Really, really good at manipulating him. And I know people like this, so I guess it doesn't really surprise me. All right, that's where we are in terms of the Russian story. Again, as people are leaking information from the meeting between Zelensky and Trump, it sounds like it went pretty brutal. Trump, by the way, went on and on supposedly about the fact that he didn't get the Nobel Prize and how unfair that was. The guy functions based on grievances and emotions and who he likes and who he hates. And he clearly admires and maybe even loves. I mean, he has this weird admiration for Vladimir Putin. And that allows Putin to manipulate him and get his way, at least up to a point. All right, let's move to the other area in which Trump is just considered a genius when it comes to foreign policy. The deal in Gaza, the deal in Gaza is supposed to lead ultimately to Israel evacuating Gaza, Hamas being disarmed, an international peacekeeping force brought in that guarantees Hamas being disarmed, and Hamas basically disappearing as an organization, and a new government being established in the Gaza Strip by a technocratic government, it's called, but a nonpartisan government. It looks like none of that is going to happen, right? It looks like Hamas is committed to not disarming. It has let everybody knows that it has no intention of disarming. The supposed new technocratic government, the names being proposed are being filtered through Hamas, and Hamas is giving thumbs up to those names that are people who are ideologically aligned with them and rejecting those who are not. But all the names are going through Hamas because Qatar is putting the list together and it is aligned with Hamas. The Palestinian Authority, that also was not supposed to have any role in governing the Gaza Strip, is choosing about 50% of the people in this technocratic government, and the other 50% being Hamas people. So you've basically got a situation where basically Hamas is completely ignoring whatever the intent of the peace deal was, or the ceasefire deal, or whatever you want to call it. Hamas has stopped killing its rivals in public, at least. We don't know what's going on in private, given the criticism it's gotten from its, I guess from Qatar and so on, the Trump administration putting pressure on Turkey and Qatar to tell them to stop. So they, supposedly they've stopped. So I guess that's good. But so none of that's happening. Disarming is not happening, Hamas intends to be completely involved in everything. And it's whether they're doing it public or in private, they're cracking down on all the opposition, all the people who could replace them. They are cracking down on them, killing them, disarming them, and making sure that they don't resist. And of course, this idea of international peacekeeping force, well, countries are saying, well, wait a minute. We get to go into Gaza and fight with Hamas? We don't want to do that. I mean, the Saudis don't want to send troops to die in Gaza fighting Hamas, partially because they've got constituency at home that support Hamas. They don't want to be perceived as the guys who actually crush Hamas. Neither does the UAE. Certainly, the only people willing to send troops in are Qatar and Turkey because their troops will be aligned with Hamas. They won't be disarming Hamas. They'll be arming Hamas. And indeed, if Israel allows Qatari and Turkish troops in to as an international peacekeeping force, then forget about it. They're going to arm Hamas to the teeth and make Gaza even more hostile to Israel than before, all in the name of a peacekeeping force. Now, not to worry, because Witkoff and Jared Kushner and JD Vance came yesterday, and JD Vance landed today in Israel to make sure that peace was going to be achieved. But the problem is, it's not in Tel Aviv. It's not in Jerusalem. The problem is in Qatar and Istanbul and in Ankara and Cairo and, of course, in Gaza. I don't know what they have to talk about with Israel. Indeed, Saudi Arabia and UAE would like Israel to go into Gaza, disband Hamas, destroy it, take away all the arms, and then they'll send in peacekeeping troops. They would love for Israel to finish the job. But the idea that an international peacekeeping force that has any ability will actually enter and start fighting with Hamas is a fantasy, and actually a nightmare. It's not even a fantasy. It's stupid, and it's not going to happen. But this is the 20-point plan. And you know that the 20-point plan can't be a very good plan if the Qataris signed up for it. Qatar is an enemy of Israel, and it's an enemy of the United States. By the way, the Qataris, today I think the Emir of Qatar had this to say, right? This to say. What has taken place in the Gaza Strip over the past 2 years amounts to genocide, a term that encapsulates all atrocities. It is regrettable that international legitimacy remains incapable of enforcing its respect when it comes to the tragedy of our brotherly Palestinian people. We hereby reaffirm our condemnation of all Israeli violations and practices in Palestine, particularly the transformation of the Gaza Strip into an area unfit for human life, the continued breaches of the ceasefire, the expansion of settlements in the West Bank, and the ongoing attempts to Judaize Al-Haram El-Sharif. It's a Temple of the Mount. We also reaffirm that the Gaza Strip is an integral part of the Palestinian territories and of the unified state of Palestine. Today, and this is the guy that Trump considers an ally, that Trump has signed an agreement to defend. There is now a defense pact where the United States guarantees to defend Qatar against all its enemies. Qatar, the number one funder of Muslim Brotherhood, the number one funder of terrorism in the Sunni world at least. We now, Americans, you and me, are now, committed to their protection. And while they are pretending to be, arbitrating and middlemen and trying to negotiate a peace, they are clearly in Hamas's corner. They are clearly on the side of Hamas. And again, remember, where did all the money come to build the tunnels? I mean, Iran, part of it, and then the rest from Qatar. Qatar has funded Hamas, helped them build the tunnel system, weaponized them. Qatar is the enemy. And Trump, brilliant foreign policy strategist, you have to admit, is completely in their pocket. Completely in their pocket. So I'm curious. What is it that makes Trump's foreign policy good? Anything? British forces are supposed to be being deployed to Israel to join a multinational task force that's going to monitor the fragile ceasefire in Gaza. This after a request from the United States. A 2-star officer, I guess general, and a small number of military personnel will be based in Israel as part of the Civil Military Coordination Center, established and led by the United States, that will provide logistical support, security, and monitor the ceasefire in Gaza Strip. Notice they're monitoring it from the Israeli side. These are the people that's supposed to restrain Israel, hold them back. A 2-star officer will serve as deputy to commander with the U.S. Armed Forces, expected to help with the flow of humanitarian aid to the Palestinians in Gaza. That is what they're concerned about. God forbid the Palestinians don't get their food. At the same time as Israel is supplying with electricity, water for free, internet, cell phone coverage for free. For free. But Israel are the bad guys. And we need to monitor the ceasefire. We need to make sure they don't go after Hamas. Why? Because we promised the Qataris, who are best friends, while they're funding our worst enemies. Foreign policy genius. Genius, this guy. In the meantime, Israel is pretty clear about its strategy, at least in the short run. Israel is basically splitting the Gaza Strip into two. It controls about 57% of the Gaza Strip, but a minority of the population. The overwhelming majority of the population are in the 43% that are left, and that is mostly destroyed. Israel is basically now putting massive barriers between what's called the yellow line, the section of Gaza Strip that it controls, and that which which Hamas controls. That we're basically seeing the formation of two Gazas. And I think what you'll see is that the Gazans on the Israeli side get more humanitarian aid. That section of Gaza might be rebuilt faster, depending on how long this takes. And whereas the other section will be controlled by Hamas or by the Qataris and will rot. It will be devastated. And who will be blamed for this? Israel, of course. Israel will be blamed for it. Now, we could have an international force that goes in, that fights and takes control from Hamas. That would be good. But I think the probability of that happening is very, very, very low. Israel could develop this eastern part of the Gaza Strip and then invite civilians to move in, maybe. We could see pressure on Hamas to disarm ultimately. But why should they? They're getting aid. They're probably getting huge amounts of money from the Qataris. Why should they disarm? Why should they disappear? Nobody seems to be willing to actually enforce the deal that they made. And they're basically killing and subduing those Palestinians who actually want a better life and want Gaza to be better and actually, don't want Hamas anymore. Hamas is destroying those people. So you'll see huge barricades go up, huge, all of that, and people say Israel's getting ready to annex eastern Gaza because they want territory or whatever fantasy people live with. No, this is a way for Israel to protect its own troops from Hamas, and since Israel does not really believe Gaza is going to be demilitarized, it doesn't believe Hamas is going to be pacified, it doesn't believe Hamas is going anywhere, they are getting ready for the long run and hunkering down for that long run. All right. Jeffrey says, thank you, Jeffrey, for the super chat. He says, I'm late. Please start from the beginning. What I suggest is you go to the beginning, put it on 2x. A lot of you listen to me 2x anyway, right? 2x, and just catch up. And then very quickly, you'll be where we are today, where we are right now. So, all right, let's quickly talk about Japan, because I raised this topic a while ago about the first female prime minister in Japan, Sanea Takaichi. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I apologize. Who is a fan of Margaret Thatcher, who I talked about yesterday. She is now being formally voted in as prime minister. She had to go through some challenges to get there. It's going to be interesting because while she is a fan of Margaret Thatcher, what she admires about Margaret Thatcher was the iron fist, the kind of determination that she had, the principles. I think she is also very strong in foreign policy, quite hostile, I think, to China. Believes that Japan should be investing in its military in order to defend itself. She is anti-immigration, and I think wants to reverse the government's policies that have allowed more immigrants into the country over the last few years. But where she isn't like Margaret Thatcher, and this is a great Japanese tragedy, I think, because she sounds like a strong leader, could get stuff done if she really wanted to, is that she is not a free market person. There's nothing to suggest that she is a pro-free markets. She is a statist. She believes in significant regulations and in industrial planning, and that Japan's strength economically comes from the top. It comes from government policy, not from liberalization and a strong market economy. She is, though, you might note, she is a huge fan of Iron Maiden and Deep Purple. She's an amateur drummer who I guess has her own heavy rock band. And as I said, her hero is Margaret Thatcher, and maybe there's a chance that she adopts Margaret Thatcher's principled view with regard to economics. Thatcher wasn't, in my view, enough of a capitalist, but at least she was in that direction, and we can hope that Mrs. Takaichi can shift her position from a more statist position to a more freedom-oriented position when it comes to economics. I am filled with hope, as always, that somebody in the world out there, other than Milei, will adopt a good, positive, pro-market economic policies. We're seeing a little bit of that in Bolivia. Not Milei style, but a bit improvement. Let's hope we get some improvement in Japan as well. Anyway, Japan now has its first female prime minister. I hope her good luck. I really like Japan, like the Japanese people, and I hope Japan's economy blooms and flourishes and does phenomenally well, because I believe in win-win. So when they do better, we do better because we trade with them. So we had this story. When was it? Yesterday or Friday? Maybe it was Friday. About the texts of the young Republicans that expressed racist, anti-Semitic, anti-women, just horrible, disgusting texts. And there was quite a backlash against them, although JD Vance and Matt Walsh defended them, but many of them have been forced to resign and quit, which is good. Anyway, today there's a new group chat with racist commentary, and this time a lot of the racist commentary is from a guy named Paul Ingrassia. Paul Ingrassia is Trump's nominee to head the Office of Special Counsel, so it's part of the Justice Department. here's some of what he wrote. MLK was the 1960s George Floyd, and his holiday should be ended and tossed into the seventh circle of hell, where it belongs. MLK was a hero at the end of the day. He fought for liberty, for freedom, for equal rights. He was wrong on a lot of things, and the Civil Rights Act ultimately was not good, and MLK was probably economically a socialist, but to call him a Floyd, that's ridiculous. Another tweet, he says, I do have a Nazi streak in me from time to time. I will admit it. Okay. And by the way, nobody took it as a joke. Nobody took it as a joke. And a number of people actually pushed back against it on the group chat. What the hell are you talking about? In another group chat, Ingracia says, never trust a Chinaman or Indian. Never. Just for emphasis, just to make clear that he was serious. And then he says, I said we should make Kwanzaa illegal in the next Trump administration. That was the gist of my tweet. No mulligan holidays from Kwanzaa to MLK Jr. Day to Black History Month to Juneteenth. Every single one needs to be eviscerated. Right? This is Trump's nominee to lead the office. So these texts came out, I think, today, and people are kind of frantic about what to do with his, with his appointment. Well, what should we do about all this? But it turns out this was not new and this was not unexpected, and people knew of this guy as a nutcase going way back, and yet he was still nominated. I mean, he called for martial law to keep Trump in office. He shared 9/11 kind of truther, conspiracy theories. He's said white men were the smartest demographic. God, not if they're Republicans. He was spotted at a white nationalist rally. He said he just stumbled into it, I'm sure. He defended Alex Jones against the Sandy Hook judgment. Quote, we all stand with Alex Jones. He called October 7th a psych op to distract from Columbus Day, calling Nikki Haley an insufferable bitch and has defended Nick Fuentes. That was all known before this morning. And then not only was he nominated for the position, but he was likely to be voted in, because we know Senate Republicans will just vote whatever Trump wants. Now, a bunch of GOP senators are saying maybe we won't vote for him after the Nazi streak and stuff. Thune has said now that he's not going to pass. But where was Thune a week ago when this other stuff was all known? So this is the kind of people Trump is nominating. Who knows who else has gotten through already that we haven't found, the emails, the texts, or they haven't expressed themselves that way, but it's all in their head. How many of the congressional staffers are secretly racist, pseudo-Nazi, anti-Semitic, just horrible people like this? This is what the GOP is turning into. This is what this party is becoming. And just to put an exclamation mark on that, well, today Kash Patel. Now, Kash Patel is a favorite of MAGA, right? Because he's MAGA. Conspiracy theory Kash Patel. He's the head of the FBI. He's all in on MAGA, all in on Trump. Well, today he made a big strategic mistake. Kash Patel is Indian. And he put out a tweet saying, Happy Diwali. Diwali is the celebration of light. It's a festival of lights around the world. It's an Indian celebration, and he wished everybody a happy Diwali, celebrating the festival of lights around the world as good triumphs over evil. That was his post. And MAGA went crazy. Christ is king. This is America. We don't do this. Get the fuck out of my country. Sir, please don't promote the festivals of foreign gods in America. This pagan BS is un-American. Go back to India. Good triumphed over evil when Jesus Christ died on the cross. Get your pagan nonsense out of here. This is America. We don't do this. I've seen that one. Is that the festival where they all shit in the streets? No. America is a Christian nation. Heritage Americans don't want demon worship in our country. Christ is king. So these are just some of the, mild, friendly, very open, very accepting responses to MAGA's own Kash Patel, who is the head of the FBI, but he's got the wrong skin color. I wonder what JD Vance thinks of all this, given his wife's Indian heritage. I wonder if JD Vance put out a tweet today celebrating Diwali. A lot of people did. Quite a few people I saw online. I doubt JD Vance did, in spite of the fact that his children are half Indian, for whatever that's worth. Pretty nutty. Pretty nutty. A pastor at Refuge Church in Ogden, Utah, basically said to Kash Patel, go back. Go back. Or somebody else, again, here's the deal. Either go back to your home country or assimilate into Christian America. Christian America. God, I have not assimilated into Christian America. What are we going to do? I assimilated into America, but not Christian America. Now, we will see what happens tonight when Donald Trump hosts a formal Diwali event at the White House at 4 p.m. And while Trump is in heated tariff negotiations with India and trying to get on India's good side as he positions himself against India and Russia, my guess is they'll slam Donald Trump. I mean, there is an aspect of personality worship here when it comes to Trump, but there's certain things like religion and hatred of foreigners that the faithful, the MAGA, are just not going to give up, even if Donald Trump doesn't share their beliefs in. And Donald Trump is far more positive about immigrants, I think, in his real life. And far more positive about people, far less racist, put it that way, explicitly racist, than his followers and the people he supports and the people he encourages and the people he winks at and gives a thumbs up at. Like in Charlottesville. I'll mention that again because I don't piss some of you off so much. And he encourages them. He supports them. He promotes them. He doesn't necessarily share all the ideas. I don't consider Trump a racist. But he encourages the racists. He supports the racists. He fertilizes the ground in which the racists grow. That is what's going on. And the worst of these, the worst racists, xenophobes, haters of foreigners, are the Christians, are the Christian nationalists. I wonder what Hegg says things about Diwali. I wonder if he's posted a happy Diwali to all the military personnel who might be of Indian origin. I have my doubts that he did that. All right, quick discussion on tariffs. I just wanted to read you a letter to the editor. Don Boudreau probably writes some of the best letters to the editor that anybody writes out there. He's an economist, George Mason. I don't agree with him on a lot of things. Certainly, I don't agree with him on a bunch of things. Anyway, but he's very good. in the letters he writes and in terms of the economics he writes. And here he's responding to an op-ed that ran last week, basically in the Washington Post, that basically said economists were wrong about tariffs and they need to rethink everything about tariffs. And I've seen people here say, oh, no, tariffs haven't been that bad. You were wrong, Yaron. I've seen that all over the place, and you can see that all over the country. People saying, oh, well, it wasn't as bad as you guys said. Well, what did we actually say? So here's Don Boudreaux. Though a few economists carelessly exaggerated the likely ill effects of President Donald Trump's tariffs, economists' overwhelming consensus was not that inflation would surge, supply chains would crash, and the economy would be plunged into a deep recession while the stock market tanked. That is all a quote from the op-ed, Economists Were Wrong About Tariffs, They Need to Figure Out Why, which was published last week. Because trade is a relatively small part of the U.S. economy, we talked about this, the tariffs were never destined to wreak damage on such a scale. This doesn't mean economists have been wrong about tariffs. Tariffs will neither spark a boom in manufacturing employment, nor increase total employment, or raise wages. Tariffs should not be used to reduce trade deficits, both because tariffs are a poor tool to achieve this outcome, and because this outcome isn't necessarily desirable. And because tariffs divert resources from more to less productive uses, they reduce the rate of economic growth. Much smaller tariffs had this effect during Trump's first term, this effect being, slowing economic growth. And there's every reason to expect a larger negative effect in his second term. Reasonable estimates of a tariff-induced slowing of economic growth range from 0.4% to 1% annually. Now that's huge, by the way, that's a lot. So let's take an estimate of the smaller side and say that on average, tariffs will reduce annual U.S. economic growth from roughly 2.5% to 2%. In 2035, each American man, woman, and child would on average have approximately $5,000 less income than if the tariffs weren't in place. Now, although not cataclysmic, this economic loss is substantial. And nothing in the data so far shows that economists are wrong to predict that. So, good letter on the economics of this. You could also, of course, talk about the morality of it, the government interfering in our lives, telling us what to buy and what not to buy, allocating our resources for us. And of course, $5,000, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're making $50,000, $5,000, 10%, that's a lot of money for a lot of people. Those are all in real terms, assuming, adjusted for inflation. And of course, if you carry this out 20 years out, 30 years out, you get much, much, much larger numbers. 0.5% of GDP growth, less 0.5% of GDP growth every year is a lot. It makes an enormous difference to the wealth of our children, to our own wealth in 10, 20 years, assuming we're alive, and to the wealth of our children and grandchildren. And I've told you this for years now. Very few things the government does is going to result in a massive economic collapse. Here I defer again from people like Peter Schiff. We're not going to see just everything falling off a cliff. The U.S. economy is still too dynamic, too many entrepreneurs, too much stuff, actually, too many values actually get produced in this country. What the government does, what the Fed does, what bailouts do, what tariffs do, what bad economic policy does, what Trump taking equity positions in American companies does, it reduces our freedom more broadly. And from an economic perspective, it leads to stagnation, to slower economic growth over the over the short run and the long run. And that leads to us being poorer. So we're not going to fall off a cliff. We're just not going to be as rich as we could be. And at some point, we might flatten out in a sense of we might have no economic growth. And at some point, we might actually shrink slowly. But it's likely to be slow rather than big, sharp drops. And if there is a big, sharp drop, it'll probably rebound and then stagnate. All right. Let's talk about one of my favorite people, as you know. Let's talk about JD Vance. JD Vance, I think one of the most horrible people out there. There's a video out circulating with clips of JD Vance speaking. And I want to show you this video because I think this video encapsulates who JD Vance is. And I'm actually going to play it at, 1.25 speed because, hey, why not? Let's hear JD Vance talk really, really fast. The video is 5 minutes long. I don't know if I'll show you the whole thing, but we'll play it. Maybe I'll stop it. Maybe I won't. Probably I'll stop it, right? I can't help myself. And you can watch. This is the future of the Republican Party. Well, no, I should say it. This is the present and the future of the Republican Party. Right now, according to polls among Republicans, JD Vance is the leading candidate to be the presidential nominee in 2028, assuming Trump is not running. He is likely to be president. He is smart, articulate, ideological. He knows what he wants. Let's listen to what he wants.
Go after the companies that are destroying this country, reward the companies that are building it. It's that simple. That's what public policy is about. If you think...
So the government should reward companies that are building this country based on the government's assessment of whether they're building or destroying, and penalize the company that destroy this country. Now, no understanding here that the fact is that companies that build, create value, trade with us, make money, are by definition building the country. And the countries that are destroying this country are the companies that are losing money, that are going bankrupt, and therefore destroying the country. No understanding that that's exactly what the market does. The market rewards those that build the country and destroys, puts in bankruptcy. This is called creative destruction. Companies that don't. I mean, and it's not that he's no understanding. This guy has read Ayn Rand. He used to be a free market guy. It's that he understands that that's not where power is. Power is in, I like you, I don't like you. You get a subsidy, you get destroyed. I put you away. We break up your company. We subsidize your company. That's power. There's no power in, write contracts, go have fun, go produce stuff, go make stuff, go build stuff, go make stuff. I mean, if you don't, go bankrupt. That's fine with me. I'm not going to bail you out. There's no power in that. Power demands action. Power demands intervention.
I think that we're going to have to fight back against corporate America, against big tech, against the pharmaceutical industry.
We have to fight back against corporate America. Well, I mean, one way you can fight back is don't buy their products. But no, we have to fight back against them.
If you think we're going to have to do these things, well, the government's pretty much the only path in town. What I worry...
Well, the only way to fight big corporation is using the government. He's right. I mean, what are you and me going to do? Not buy their products? That's not fighting. And it's not in mass, just you and me. Maybe we can advertise it, but it's not going to be huge. But the government can fight them. They can regulate them. It can sue them. It can shut them down. And it can subsidize the guys that they like. And he assumes we have to fight big corporations. We have to. And maybe this was in the days of DEI. What about when there's no DEI? Well, we still have to fight them because they're not doing what we want them to do. They're not enhancing the country by his own, whatever, estimates, whatever those are.
Only path in town. What I worry about is that we have outsourced in the conservative movement our economic and our domestic policy thinking to the libertarians.
We've outsourced economics and domestic policy theory to libertarians. Now, let's here assume libertarians means free markets. So let's not address the wacko libertarians. Just free market libertarians, people who want free markets. Let's assume that's what he means. Yeah, right? When did this ever happen? When was the last time there was mass deregulation? When was the last time we shrunk government spending? When was the last time we lowered the level of welfare spending? When was the last time we proposed reforming Medicare and Social Security? When was this? I mean, I wish. But the Republican Party has never been pro-free markets. And it certainly has never outsourced their thinking to free market types, and they've never implemented any free markets. Calvin Coolidge was not that great. In many respects, Calvin Coolidge was awful and set us up for the disaster that we live in today. It's terrible on tariffs. It's terrible on immigration. So,
the failure to use political power that the public has given is a choice.
the failure to use political power means the failure to use force, the failure to use coercion, the failure to use a gun.
And it's a choice that has increasingly had, and I think increasingly will have, incredibly dire consequences. Then we
So it's a choice. It's a choice the Republican Party has made not to use coercion. Wait a minute. What are we talking about? Hasn't the Republican Party grown government substantially and significantly? When did the Republican Party ever stand for free markets? Maybe a little bit under Reagan, a little bit, teeny-weeny bits.
have to be willing to pursue a politics that actually wants to accomplish something besides just making government smaller.
When did Republicans ever pursue a policy to make government smaller? When did this happen?
Problem with, frankly, some of our interlocutors on the right is that their worldview appears to be that every time Republicans gain a governing majority, they have to sit on their hands and do nothing with it. Our critiques of the administrative...
Nothing. I wish they do nothing with it. They always grow government. Spend more. Regulate more.
state are very often correct. But our answer to this can't be every single time the American people give us power, the only thing that we try to do is to trim down the thing that they gave us control over.
But they gave you control of it so that you trim it down. You ran on that. And then the American people say, yes, we like that. We like Tea Party. We like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and these guys. We like them. We want them to trim government down. That's what we voted for. And then they go in there and they don't trim it down. And that's when the American people get frustrated and angry. But the reason some of us voted for you, gave you power, was for you to trim government. And then you don't. So who's betraying whom here? You want to use that power to grow your power. You tell us on the campaign trail, you're going to trim government, you're pro the Constitution, pro the founding of America, pro founding fathers. And then when you get into power, you want to abuse that, which you do. You've done it all the time. I mean, he's got such a straw man of the Republican Party.
The counter argument to the idea that, well, we can't give the power to government, we can't give any power to government because then the left might misuse it, is to look at the United States military. Right? If your argument is Gina Raimondo may misuse the CHIPS bill, therefore we cannot do the CHIPS bill, well, I guess we should abolish the Department of Defense because Joe Biden's doing a lot of crazy crap with the Defense Department. Look, the big difference.
You figure that one out. That one's beyond me. It's complete nonsensical. As if the Defense Department is not being abused by both left and right. George Bush certainly abused the Defense Department and our military. Yeah, you know, that should make us think twice. No? Whoops. What did I do? Yeah, right.
Look, the big difference between the left and the right is the left loves to use power and the right is terrified of using power.
Really?
I did this event at the Yale Federalist Society recently where they asked me for my 3 favorite Democrats purely in terms of policy outcomes. And I said, in order, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Tulsi Gabbard.
Notice it. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard, those are his favorite Democrats in terms of policy outcomes. He took the most left-wing Democrats. And you want to tell me this administration is dramatically better, different than a Democratic one when it comes to domestic policy? In many respects, they're much, much worse. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, those are the 3 he chose in terms of policy outcomes. He shares the same outcomes. We're talking about egalitarianism. They're all egalitarians. Haters of business. Haters of entrepreneurs. Haters of success. And this is a young JD Vance. This is when he was less radical.
The left
has a basic instinctive advantage because they love to use power, but we're just going to have to get over it.
You have a conservative movement that very often sort of saw its purpose as scaling back progressive exercises of power rather than pursuing its own ends. And that, I think, was a really, really significant problem. And if there's a sort of distinction between the new right and the old right, it probably, again, abstractions are always really challenging, but it's probably that the old right was terrified of using power for conservative ends, and the new right is not. Why don't we seize
The new right is not afraid of using power. You all should be really, really, really afraid of the new right, because they want to use power like the left, and the outcome they want is no different. He just said, on outcomes, he agrees with Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Tulsi Gabbard. Where are the defenders of the Trump administration? I don't see them in the chat. Maybe somebody can defend
the assets
JD.
of the Ford Foundation, tax their assets, and give it to the people who have had their lives destroyed by their radical open borders agenda.
You hear this phrase, Steve, you hear this slogan,
tax.
Go woke, go broke, right? If the railroad industry has gone woke, and it has, if it's setting off chemical bombs in our communities, and it has, isn't it the job of the servants of the people to make them pay up a little? Some issues I'm very traditionally conservative, but like one issue, for example, where I depart pretty strongly from the traditional Republican line is I think a lot of folks in the Republican Party, they see what's going on with Google, Apple, Facebook, with big tech writ large, and they say, well, we don't like what they're doing. We don't like the fact that they censor conservatives, but they're private companies, and so we can't actually do anything with them. And my response to that is, well, first of all, they're not actually private companies. They benefit from a ton of special government privileges, but also they're just too powerful. Like,
free speech just went out the window, guys. Went out the window. Not even pretense of free speech. So what if they're private companies? They're big, and we hate big. It sounds exactly like the left. Sounds exactly like Elizabeth Warren. We hate big, and if they're behaving in ways that we don't like, whatever that happens to be. By the way, I'm sure right now, Twitter would not make that list because Twitter's behaving the way he likes. Not the way the left likes, but the way he likes. Who gets to decide? This is stunning, and it's really, thank you to Jason Hart, by the way, Jason Hart. I think a kind of free market economist, I think, who put this compilation together, and you can find it online. It goes on. There's another minute and a half of this, but you get the drift of this. These guys are really evil. They're really evil. This is the kind of country they want to turn us into, a statist, authoritarian country where the right uses power to tell us how to live. I mean, he is a student of Deneen, Patrick Deneen from Notre Dame, who advocates for the use of government to dictate morality. Indeed, the government should be run based on Christian morality. He's an advocate of Vermeulen, the law professor at Harvard University, who is a common good conservative, who believes that the Constitution means nothing, that what matters is the common good, and everything should be interpreted in the context of the common good. Scary stuff. Scary, scary, scary stuff. So I'm trying to scare you guys. I'm trying to get some of you, maybe some of you already there, to take the threat from the right seriously. I don't know. Some of you want me to play. Some of you want me to play. Okay, here's the rest of it.
However they got there, they're way too powerful and they're way too big at this point.
It's time to break them up. It's time to destroy them.
Time to break them up.
Tax them.
Break
it's
up
time
big
to
tech.
Do whatever is necessary so that we can continue to have a good life in this country that all of us love.
Try to do whatever is necessary. Whatever is necessary. Whatever is necessary.
To save our democracy from oligarchs who are taking it away.
Oligarchs. These guys are oligarchs.
Facebook.
By the way, the team of Tucker Carlson and JD Vance, very close, still very close, in spite of Tucker Carlson going completely nuts and off the reservation. They're still very close. Can you imagine a JD Vance president with his chief advisor being Tucker Carlson? JD Vance is no friend. He's a friend of Russia. He hates Zelensky. He's no friend of Israel at the end of the day. He might pretend to be, but he's not. Remember Tucker Carlson's trajectory. He's certainly no friend of capitalism. There's just no pluses, no virtues. He's not woke, although he might be woke right.
Google, especially Twitter, YouTube, these companies all really do control what information gets out there in the public square.
Did you hear YouTube? He's coming after you.
Is when more establishment style conservatives will say, well, you can't do anything about this, they're private companies.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, that's totally BS. They benefited from any number of special government privileges. They're not.
So that means that everybody who's benefited from government privileges is not private anymore. By the way, all of you have driven on government roads. You probably went to government schools. You probably benefit somewhat from government health care. You've all benefited somewhat from government, and some of you might have benefited from the minimum wage and benefited from all those benefits that you get from your employer. That's all government mandated. So you've all benefited from government, and therefore none of you are private. All of you are basically owned by the government, and therefore they can control, tell you what to do, tell you what to say, tell you how to behave. You are just pawns because the government has touched you in some way. God forbid the concept of freedom come up.
Really private companies. They're basically behemoths that have been built on the back of special protections from the government. The other piece of it is that even if they were truly private companies, which again they're not, I care more about their ability to control the flow of information. They're just too powerful. Private or public, one of the things I think conservatives should push back against is anything that's too powerful. And they're way, way, way too powerful. Google and Facebook are not giving me a whole lot of money.
Even if they were completely private, he says, it wouldn't make a difference to him. Even if they were completely private, it wouldn't make a difference to him. Because what he's concerned about is the common good, the public interest. What's good for society. They're just too powerful. They're just too big. And he knows how big you should be, right? There's a optimal size. And JD Vance or his experts, they know. They are smart enough to identify exactly the right size a company needs to be.
Like me, because I believe that Americans ought to be able to speak their own mind in their own country, and I think these companies are too big. We're going to take the Teddy Roosevelt approach to some of them, break them up.
But wait a second, JD. Google is a private company, and we have no interest in attempting to constrain or control its behavior.
I know, people say that. Yeah.
What do you say when they do?
Well, my reaction to that is first of all, if I'm being honest, I just don't care. Go after.
And you got to say, as a premium, for sticking with the video all the way to the end, you got Tucker's laugh, which is the spookiest, most evil laugh ever. Well, not evil, really, just ridiculous. Yeah, you got to see it. You got to hear. That is JD Vance. You can find that video on Twitter or Jason Hart. Just go to Jason Hart's website. He put it up there with an article articulating his case against him. Pretty unbelievable. Pretty unbelievable. Why did I put the pre-show on? That's what it should be. Sorry. I just don't care. He said, I just don't care. They're private companies, JD. We live in America. Individual rights, freedom, and free association, and freedom, capitalism. Remember free market, stuff like that? I just don't care. I have a vision, and that's what we're going to pursue. I just don't care. And then you get Tucker's laugh. Perfect. Perfect. Hi. All right. Where are we? Yes. It's kind of anything is. Let's talk about RFK's new guidelines for saturated fat. So RFK is going to issue new U.S. Department of Health guidelines for saturated fat. And he is going to encourage us all to eat more saturated fat. You guys do not eat enough saturated fat, it turns out, and he wants you to eat more. New dietary guidelines, he says, that are common sense, that stress the need to eat saturated fats of dairy, of good meat, of fresh meat and vegetables. When we release those, it will give everybody the rationale for driving it into our schools. So we're going to get kids to eat more saturated fat. Now, I don't really have a strong position on whether you should be eating more saturated fat or less saturated fat. But I do have a strong position on the fact that it's none of the frigging business of government to tell me how much saturated fat I should eat. Sorry. I feel strongly about this. The food pyramid has contributed to the obesity crisis in America. It's probably made us less healthy. I don't know if Kennedy's guidelines are right or wrong, and it doesn't matter. The guidelines, there should be no guidelines coming from the government. And it doesn't matter if the people in the government are doctors, scientists, Einsteins. What I eat is my business. And my doctors, I should consult with my doctor. And you know what? Doctors disagree. I know people who think only eat meat, 100% meat, all day, all night, eat steak. That's it. It's called the carnivore diet, the Eskimo diet. Look, Eskimos live fine lives, and they eat no vegetables, no fruit, they take no vitamins, they only eat meat, and they're cool. So you should do the same. And then I know people who say, oh, no. You know, the carnivore diet, that's terrible. That's really, really, really bad. You should eat only vegetables. You should be a vegan. And there's a lot of science, there's a lot of research that shows that vegans live healthy and longer than non-vegans. I think. I don't know. Eskimos don't eat berries. There are no berries in northern Alaska. Southern Alaska, maybe. No, they eat only meat. Only. So, what is right? Well, you need to figure that out. Ideally, you would get help from your doctor. There are a lot of doctors online opining about this. I like Attia. You know, I watch a lot of Attia's, Peter Attia's videos, but I know some of you hate him, and particularly on the diet stuff, on food. But the point is, yeah, I mean, Nate says, Pete's diet is the only way. I mean, it's amazing how diet has become religion. There's only one diet. Everybody should follow it. There's only one God. Everybody should follow him. If you don't eat the right diet, you should feel guilty. Not breastfeeding is the original sin. I don't know what the right diet is. And I'll say something else. Nobody knows what the right diet is. There's a lot of debate and disagreement around it. More than that, it's not obvious or clear that the right diet for you is the right diet for me. We have different metabolisms. We react differently to different foods. Diet is probably personal. We're not identical. Our bodies are not identical. Absolutely not. Our biome in our gut is not the same. And, you know, the way our bodies function, the hormone levels are not the same. Different males here have different levels of testosterone. Females have different levels of estrogen. How does that impact diet? How should it impact diet? The idea that we're all the same is absurd in our bodies, is absurd and ridiculous. It's just not true. And while you can come at high probability, you know, lots of sugar is probably not good for you. But diet has become religion, and JFK has a particular religion. But the point is, religion has no place in government. Diet has no place in government. Science has no place in government. The government shouldn't have a position on quantum mechanics. The government shouldn't have a position on the best cancer treatment. The government shouldn't have a position on what I should eat and what my kids should eat. So whether you agree with RFK's recommendations or not, just get the government out of our pantry. Finally, some good news. After all that depressing stuff. we've talked a lot over the years about how awful San Francisco has become, the homeless problem, the exit of all the businesses, the fact that, you know, much of downtown and South of Market became like a ghost town, the shuttering of businesses, the basically the collapse of hotels, collapse, not physical collapse, monetary collapse of hotels in San Francisco, the fact that a lot of department stores have left. So I thought I'd give you some good news, and this is a headline in the Wall Street Journal. San Francisco emerges from the shadow of a doom loop. Crime is down, rents are up, and the city is rebounding, to a large extent because of AI, the boom in AI, but also because companies are now requiring people to come in, and because they got rid of their super woke mayor, and they're clamping down and clearing some of the homeless encampments. I still wouldn't go to the Tenderloin district, but generally fewer homeless than there was just a little while ago. You're seeing more people in the downtown and in the tech area around the Salesforce Tower. Restaurants are opening, and restaurants seem relatively full. And a lot of this is around AI, around the fact that new companies are based in San Francisco because that's where the talent is. And the fact that venture capital is investing and people are relocating. As a consequence of people relocating to San Francisco, rents are up, supply and demand, remember that? They were down for a long time, from 22 to 24. Rents plummeted in San Francisco as people were leaving. Now they're back up. It's the same as you remember there was a story, can New York recover from COVID? Will New York ever recover from COVID? And there were a lot of people said, no, New York can never recover. This is such a blow. It's finished. Well, it turns out not so much. So, you know, you're seeing new shops opening in downtown San Francisco. Even around the civic area, you're seeing economic activity. I'm going to be in San Francisco for a couple of days in November. Hotel rates way up. About a year ago, you could go to San Francisco and get a really nice hotel room at a really nice hotel for dirt cheap. Now, in the nice areas and the nice hotels, room rates are way up. So, yeah, huge, and and good to see. I mean, San Francisco is still one of the 3 most beautiful cities on the planet, and a resurrection of the city, a city coming back would be phenomenal. Another, San Francisco has always benefited from gold rushes. Currently, it's the AI gold rush. And, one of the big ones is crime is down. Burglaries, for example, are down 28% this year, which is huge. Overall, crime by any measure is down quite a bit. All right. I'm going to quick one more story that I couldn't fit into the title. But Trump, one of the things Trump likes to do is he likes to promise all of us lower prices. I mean, he has advocated for lower oil prices, gasoline prices to fill our cars, and he's fulfilled that. Gasoline is very cheap right now, and oil prices are way down, so much down that there's very little drilling in the United States because it's very difficult to make money at these really cheap oil prices. And but Trump is big on lowering prices for consumers and trying to manipulate markets to get the prices down. And he did that with oil to some extent, and now he's trying to do it with beef. And part of that is going to Argentina and buying huge amounts of beef from Argentina, which will lower prices. I mean, that's what happens when you buy stuff from overseas and you don't tariff it, you don't tax it. What happens is you lower prices. Now, if what Trump really wants to do is lower prices, then he should reverse all his tariffs. That would lower prices. Instead, he is selectively choosing the industries in which he is lowering prices by guaranteeing purchases, I guess, and giving exclusions to tariffs. Now, we know soybean farmers have been really, really hurt by the tariffs. Well, now, now that the United States is committed to buying Argentinian beef in large numbers, beef prices is going to start declining. And guess who's pissed off? All those Trump supporters who happen to be cattle farmers, cattle ranchers, not farmers, ranchers. I'm appalled President Trump, who campaigned on how he loved farmers, is putting American farmers out of business by helping Argentinian farmers first, said John Boyd, a cattle and crop farmer and founder of the National Black Farmers Association. Trump set us up and sold us out. Merriweather Farms, dear POTUS, Trump, we love you and support you, but your suggestion to buy beef from Argentina to stabilize beef prices would be an absolute betrayal to the American cattle rancher. Here's the lesson learned. And this should have been learned a long time ago. And it's a lesson many people know but evade anyway. Central planning doesn't work. Don't try to manipulate prices. But if you want American people to do well, if you want them to achieve, if you want generally wages to go up and purchasing power to increase, and standard of living to go up and cost of living to go down, just get out of the frigging way. Don't tax us. Don't tariff us. Don't regulate us. Don't tell us which country we should buy beef from. For that matter, don't tell us how much beef we should eat. Just get out of the frigging way. Let markets work. Markets, in other words, freedom, are an amazing way by which production happens, resources are allocated, and we all basically are better off. All right, guys, that is the news for October 21st, Tuesday. Capitalism works. Markets work. Get out of the way. Just get out of the way. All right. Let's go to the super chat. I remind you all, we're in our second hour. We've just passed the threshold of the first hour. We need to get to $500 for 2 hours. This is how I fund the show. This is how I allocate time for this show. You want the show to continue and to grow and to be successful. I need your support, basically. Value for value, a trade. You listen to the show, find ways to support it financially. You can support it financially here by doing a sticker or a super chat. You can support the show monthly by going to PayPal or to Patreon and putting Yaron Brook Show and supporting it that way. But please, if you're listening or watching, please consider finding a way to support the show. And if you're here live, one of the deals is the live people pay a little bit extra by doing super chats or chats. And if you're on Twitter, on something else, then come on over to YouTube where the fun is, participate in the chat and come in and support the show, because if you're listening, it obviously is a value to you. Trade. That's what we believe here. We believe in freedom and capitalism and trade on the Yaron Brook Show. Reminder that we have 3 sponsors. Hendershot Wealth, Hendershot with 2 T's, hendershotwealth.com/YBS. Has products that can really help you with capital, with deferring and saving you a lot of money on capital gains taxes. Check them out. Check out, I think, primarily the interview I did with Robert Hendershot. It's in the playlists under sponsors. I think you should watch the video anyway. I think you'll enjoy it. Robert is great. And if you find it interesting, go to hendershotwealth.com/YBS. Also, the Ayn Rand Institute wants to remind you all that the Atlas Shrugged essay contest, the deadline is October 31st, in a week and a half. And you guys should be participating. To learn more about the essay contest and how to participate and what to write and all of that, go to AynRand.org/start here. AynRand.org/start here. And just to remind you, the top prize is a whopping $25,000. I remember when it was $5,000. And that's not inflation. All right, and finally, Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is the number one thinker in the world on all issues related to energy, electricity production, and therefore one of the most important thinkers in our world today. Alex is a sponsor of the show, and you guys would benefit enormously by going to his Substack, alexepstein.substack.com, and subscribing for free, and then you get to read the cutting edge, the most important material out there on the crisis we have with energy, our electricity grid, the tax on fossil fuels, and the subsidies to the unreliable energy of solar and wind. So check out alexepstein.substack.com. I'll remind you, those of you not here right now, not watching live, to go to Patreon and support the show monthly on Patreon. I'll remind the many people on Twitter who are watching the show to consider coming over to YouTube and help support the show and ask questions and engage. All right. Not sure what that is. We'll keep that. Let's see. All right, let's jump into the super chat. What did I want to check? I want to check out here. Yeah, we've got 170 people watching on Twitter. Come on over to YouTube. 150 on YouTube. Yeah, consider making a small contribution towards supporting this show by using a sticker like Thought Criminal just did. Thank you, Thought Criminal. From the UK, Nottingham, from Canada. We've got a very international audience here. Soon I'm going to answer a question from the Czech Republic. And let's see, who else did a sticker? Ryan from Canada again. Canadians are much more generous. What's going on, Americans? Stephen Hopper, thank you. Yeah, lots of Canadians have a big following in Canada, I guess. Mike Dial, Joseph, thank you. And Jonathan Honing, thank you. Mary Aline, thank you. Thanks to all the sticker people, we call them, here on the Yaron Brook Show. All right, Jacob, asking a question from the Czech Republic. I said I'd make a big donation once I got a job I was aiming for. So today, this is my small celebration. Wouldn't have made the move without the moral guidance from ARI. Thank you, Jacob. I'm really happy for you. I'm glad you made the move. Check out my my Rules for Life, where I talk a lot about taking risks and making moves and pursuing life and going for it and not settling, not settling. And I appreciate you choosing to celebrate in this way and to celebrate with us. Thank you for your support. $50, that is very, very generous, and made a real dent in our in achieving the goal, but still need these guys' help. Okay, Shazbot. How long before a completely artificial eye is developed? Night vision, telescopic infrared, ultraviolet video capture, and who knows what else? Yeah, I think it's a while, particularly at high resolution, which is what you want. It's probably, I don't know, several decades away. But yes, the whole robotization of the human mind and our senses is going to happen. We are going to be bionic. In one way or another, we're going to be bionic. We're going to have enhanced senses, enhanced abilities, and that is a wonderful thing, not a thing to be afraid of, but a thing to embrace and celebrate. Human beings are going to, in a sense, merge with the machines and be better for it. Use our capacity to reason, our capacity to choose, with the unbelievable capacity to compute which machines have. Thank you, Shazbot. Jamie, the left seems happy to see Milei's libertarianism fail due to the bailouts, but is peso collapse really Milei's fault? Who's to blame, and why on earth did he lose last election when he's accomplished so much? Frustrating. I don't know who's to blame. I mean, look, has everything Milei done been right? I don't know. I don't know enough about the Argentinian economy to judge it. The economy is definitely shrinking right now, so the economy is in trouble right now. Could he have done more? I don't know, given that he didn't control Parliament. I don't know if he could have done more. Certainly, we'd liked him to have done more. But the collapse, I think, to a large extent, was a result of sentiment change. The fact that he lost the election. Now, he lost the election in Buenos Aires, which was always to the left of Milei, but it was by a larger margin than people thought. And people were led to fear that this would result in him losing the election next week. I don't know what's going to happen next week. And a lot of economics is based on trust and based on positive predictions about the future. You invest in the future. And once you lose confidence in the future, investment goes down. And once investment goes down, fewer people employed, wages go down, everything gets hurt. So I think it's a change in sentiment that changed it. And the collapse of the peso, which was a consequence of the change in sentiments. What exactly happens from now on, we will see, and we'll know a lot more after the elections next week. Jamie says, how would voluntary tax work? I have to think of if government tells us we don't have to pay taxes, nobody will pay it, and military, police, justice system, and things government should do will cease to exist. Any examples in history? No, but there are no examples of history of lots of things. There were no examples of history of a country founded on a Declaration of Independence and a constitution like America. So the fact that something has not existed in the past doesn't mean it won't exist in the future and can't work. I think you're completely wrong. I think if the government came to us and said, yeah, we're not requiring you to pay taxes. We're not requiring you to pay. But if you want police, if you want a military, if you want a justice system, here's what we on average need people to contribute. I think the government would get more than it needs. It will run a surplus, which I worry about. It will have to be somewhere in the Constitution. They have to return surpluses to the people. There will be so much money they won't know what to do with it. People will be so rich, free, benevolent. Remember, we have reached a change where the government has shrunk by 90%. Well, we are free and unbelievably rich because the government has shrunk by 90%. And therefore, we have capitalism and people are innovating and creating and building and making. And therefore, we're all super rich. And then the government comes and said, I don't know, something like 5% of your income, somewhere between 5 to 10% of your income, if you did that, we could protect your rights. I would go, yeah, what a deal. Here's a check. Like, you guys give checks to, I don't know, the Heinrich Institute for some abstract idea that maybe they'll change the world someday in the future. You give checks to charities to help the poor. Why would you not give a check for somebody to protect you? Why would you not give a check to have a military? Why would you not give a check to have a functioning justice system that you will benefit from? It is so fundamentally, basically, obvious that people would be happy to give their money. It would be, it's the most selfish thing you can do. Protect my rights. Here, you want to protect my rights? Absolutely. I want you to protect my rights. Here's a check. No, as I said, I think government will have too much money. So I absolutely think, and this is, You know, the difference between Americans and Europeans and maybe Canadians is Canadians and Europeans and Israelis are cynical. Oh, nobody will pay. But that's not true. It's just not true. It's why Americans are generally generous, why they give a lot of money to charity, but not just to charities, to think tanks and other things. If you run a think tank in Europe, it's almost impossible to raise money because people don't write checks. The government does it all. The government writes the checks to think tanks in Europe. So why should you? So Americans are very benevolent and therefore happy to support causes that they believe in. What is a bigger cause to believe in than your own security? The objectivity of the law. And, you know, if you had an opportunity to go into a restaurant and eat and walk out without paying, and you'll never be caught, would you do it? And I think an overwhelming majority of Americans, at least in the past, maybe not today, but certainly in the future, in this kind of future, would refuse to do it. They would absolutely pay. I want to pay for the values I get, which reminds you, you guys should pay for the value you get by listening to the show. So stickers, questions. Now, $185 to go. We've got 28 minutes to get there. 28 minutes, $185. Not that big of a deal. Not that big of a deal. All right. Thank you, Jamie. Shazbot. But Yaron, if Trump can't play with tariffs, what else can he do? Play golf. Trump should play golf 24/7, nonstop. You should do nothing else but play golf because playing golf, he does no harm, does no damage. Jennifer, Yaron, I have been to northern Alaska, Eskimo villages, and they do pick tundra berries and preserve them to keep for the whole year. Jennifer has just destroyed the carnivore myth. People have been telling me about Eskimos eating only meat and never eating berries for years, and I believe them. And Jennifer has just crushed everything I knew about Eskimo diets. I believe you. It makes sense. They've got to get some of those other vitamins. It would be difficult otherwise. So, thank you, Jennifer, for expanding my knowledge. I've never been to northern Alaska. This shows you that you need firsthand proof of stuff. Don't accept just the stories people tell you to rationalize what they're doing. RDF, thank you for the sticker. All right, Jennifer also says, thank you for the great shows. Here are my thoughts. Keep weight down, eat variety of foods, exercise, good sleep, schedule. Don't drink too much, no smoking or crack. What if you got against crack? God, I don't get that. I figure the rest is in your genes. Listen to the doc. Yeah, I mean, look, I like Peter Attia, as I told you. And Peter basically says, look, there's only one thing that is clearly correlated with longevity, and that's exercise. And particularly muscle mass. You've got to be strong. You've got to be able to carry yourself. You've got to be able to lift yourself. You've got to be stable. So many people die because they fall. And they never recover from it. Like something like if you're in your 70s and you fall and break a bone, break your hip, I think it's a hip, break your hip, 50% of people are dead within a year. So exercise. And exercise for strength. I mean, cardio is good too, but more important is strength, VO2 max. And the cardio side, it's VO2 max. VO2 max is the most correlated to longevity again. And then when it comes to food, we don't know. There's certain things we know. Don't eat a lot of sugar. You want to lower your ApoB, which is, in a sense, you want to reduce the plaque formation in your arteries. And ApoB is a good way to measure the risk of plaque forming in your arteries. So you want to lower your ApoB. You can do that by dieting. You can also do it with drugs that are fairly safe. You can take a statin, and lower that. You want to lower it as low as possible, as low as you can without completely changing your life. You probably don't want to eat too much sugar. You know, some sugar is good for you, but, you know, and then eat a bunch of stuff. Eat a variety of different foods, variety of vegetables. Eat meat. There's nothing wrong with meat. You know, eat a variety of different things. If you're, you know, if you're allergic to dairy, don't eat dairy. I don't eat dairy. I mean, not true. I eat cheese, but I don't eat the soft dairy. Yeah, exercise. Now, good sleep is huge, where I'm not that strong. Now, again, this is what I do. And it's not, I don't know what's good. I don't know with certainty what's good. I know with probability. I think what I just told you is close to the best science available. But I might be wrong. I certainly don't have area expertise, and I don't know with certainty. But I have an opinion, and this is my opinion based on my readings and my research and what I've looked into and based on my own body. So you do your own research, figure it out. What I don't want is the government telling us what to do. But the idea that I don't have an opinion would be ridiculous. I have a body. I need to feed it. I need to decide what to eat and what not to eat. The choices are infinite almost. I need to decide what to drink, what not to drink. I need to decide how much to exercise and not exercise. I have to have an opinion. Every one of you should have an opinion. And that opinion should be based on research. I eat dark chocolate. I actually eat 99% and 100% dark chocolate with almost no sugar in it. But I read very conflicting evidence about chocolate. In some places, it says it's really good for you and it has these things that help with longevity. Other places say that's all BS. The research is not there. One of the things I'm pretty good at is knowing what I actually know and what I have some sense might be helpful. And, you know, I take vitamins. I don't know if they're helpful. I think they are. I mean, I tilt towards more helpful than not, right? So I think they're probably 60% probability they're helpful. I wouldn't take them if it was less than 50%. But I don't know with certainty. So, you know, the same with dark chocolate. I eat dark chocolate. I hope it's good for me. I like the taste. I don't eat a lot of sugar, and I feel much better when I don't eat a lot of sugar. And when I eat a lot of sugar, I feel like crap. So that's a good measure. You know, test it on yourself. Make your body a test. If I eat milk, I feel like crap. So you gotta make your own decisions. Jeffy asked, did the interstate ruin trains? Well, they didn't. Not really. What ruined trains was the Interstate Commerce Act in the 19th century, which created a government regulatory body to regulate trains. So trains were in trouble really from the beginning because they were regulated. And then, you know, antitrust was used against the trains. And trains became the first industry in the United States, maybe the second industry, but first or second, to be really, really, really crony. Really crony. And, you know, so that ruined the trains. The interstate was competition to the trains. But one of the reasons the interstate was built and became so successful is because the trains were so pathetic and so behind. Right. So regulation, government controls, it ruined trains well before the interstate highway system. And what's amazing is there's enough traffic to do both. It's just that because of all the regulations and controls and land regulations and controls on prices and everything else, it's you know, it's almost impossible to make enough money on trains and to find enough investors in trains to actually modernize them so that they really compete with the highway system. Michael, is Milei leaps and bounds better than Thatcher and Reagan? Yeah, probably. From an economic perspective, probably. Now, we'll see what he does if he gets a parliamentary majority and can use it. But yeah, he's also starting at a more negative point in the sense that Argentina was more of a basket case than either England or the United States were at that point. All right, guys, we are still $150 short. Thank you, Nicholas, for the sticker, and thank you, Paul, for the sticker. We're still 150, and we've got 18 minutes. 18 minutes for $150. That's less than $10 a minute. So we can do that. Maybe. We'll see. All right. Jamie, what's a realistic way we can transition away from Federal Reserve Bank of Canada? Would an American dollar cease to exist? Would banks all have their own money? How would that system work? Feasible? Yeah, I think it is feasible. Banks would issue their own currency. Not all banks. You'd probably have a few very large banks, maybe the top 3, the top 5, the top 10 banks issuing currency, and the entire system using that currency. That currency would probably be redeemable into gold, and the gold would be held by by banks to be redeemed at any one of the levels. But most of that gold would be redeemed by the very large banks. MMT is complete BS. And the way to get there realistically, not realistic in the sense that it would happen, because it won't happen, because this is not going to happen in my lifetime or probably your lifetime, but is, for example, to say a year from today, or 1st of January 2027, we are going to shift to a gold standard. We're going to tie the dollar to the price of gold on that day. Whatever the price of gold is on that day, that is the dollar. And let the market decide what gold is worth. Then make all dollars redeemable into gold. That is, the Fed would stop printing dollars, but make them redeemable, and then slowly start the process of the Fed stopping to issue dollars, reallocating gold to the extent that's on reserve at the Fed to various banks out there, to the banks that are ultimately going to be the currency issuers, in exchange for the dollars, and slowly sucking the existing dollar out of the economy. And what you would get is a JP Morgan Chase dollar and a Citibank dollar and a Bank of America dollar. And those would serve as the currency. Now, again, that's very feasible, particularly in a digital world where you're not literally carrying around gold and you're not literally carrying around dollar bills. It is feasible. It's doable. It would dramatically improve the economy, dramatically eliminate inflation, but unlikely to ever happen, or not ever, unlikely to happen before there's a major philosophical revolution in the world, and that's, as far as I can tell, far off. Did Milton Friedman change the world? I mean, he had an impact on the world. He definitely helped bring about the turn to the right in the sense of economic right that Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher were part of. I think so did Mises, and so did Hayek, and so did Ayn Rand. I think those four had a big impact on shifting in the 1970s, on shifting away from Keynesianism towards a free market, and towards a free market in the UK and in the United States, and ultimately on a global scale. Milton Friedman was not pro-fiat at the end of his days. He was most of his career pro-fiat, but towards the end of his days, he believed that the Fed should be abolished, and we should go to some kind of gold standard. So I'd say in the last 15 years of his life, I think that's what he held. Michael, Is Trump really a marketing genius, or does he just happen to be a rabid dog in a time and place that was looking to make a rabid dog empire? I think both. I think he's a rabid dog in a sense, but he's also really good at marketing. You can see that with his properties, but you can also see that in how quickly he pivots and changes his mind on things based on what he thinks will sell to his audience. I think he's both. I think he's both. Mary Eileen says, I know a number of Indian immigrants who celebrate Diwali and have a Christmas tree. Their kids love it. Yeah, I mean, more presents for them. Absolutely. Why not celebrate more holidays? Kids love that. Matt, the right is worse. They both have a same evil principle, or lack of them entirely, but focus on different groups. But the right is far more effective. Yep, I agree. Far more effective and because they're more integrated and because they have a principle in which to integrate religion. This is the dim hypothesis and nationalism. Nationalism, religion, are powerful uniting principles that integrate into something. And we are integrating being. Even if that integration is wrong, we'd rather integrate than not. Z400 Race, thank you for playing last clip. Unreal how brazen he is. Yeah, I mean, he tells you what he thinks. We just need to believe him. The mixed economy, Matt says, the mixed economy will always lead to Vance, Warren types. It's a slippery slope pointing towards a dark pit. It's immoral and thus does not work. Yep, absolutely. It's an unstable equilibrium that leads towards more statism. Unless you manage to change the world and move it towards greater freedom. Matt says, government overreach has cannabis. Government overreach has cannabis still listed as a Schedule I drug. Good thing I have no qualms with breaking laws that don't violate anyone's rights. Well, I don't use cannabis. I've tried it once, but I don't use cannabis. And I'm skeptical about how good it is for you. But yeah, I mean, the government should have no business, but of course, shouldn't have any business in the crack or heroin business either. It should get out of the way. New poll. What's your take on UK versus Argentina war? I'm on the UK side. I mean, UK provided the islands of Falkland with freedom. Argentina was ruled by a military government. It lacked freedom. I'm always for the side that is pro-freedom. I don't care who owned what, when. I am just about liberty. And if you get more freedom under the Brits, even if they're 8,000 miles away, go with the Brits. Christos, when you see your life and business depending on the mood of your president and you can't plan, you know your society is doomed and dictatorship is either here or likely coming next. Sadly, I think that's all true, and it's very scary times in that sense because this president it really is nuts, and so much of our prosperity and our success in the future depends on decisions made by this emotionalist goon, right? Lone Dissenter, last question. Last question. If you want to support the show, now is the time, because this is the last question. Do a sticker quickly. Blue Jays or Dodgers? That's a tough one. I can't support the Jays because they're the Red Sox rivals. So I'd have to go with the Dodgers. LA Dodgers, Brooklyn Dodgers. They have an amazing history. But not because I know anything about anybody. I don't follow baseball. And, I only follow baseball when the Red Sox are doing well. And they haven't done well in a long time. All right, guys. Tomorrow we will have a show, but it'll be a little early. So tomorrow the show is planned for wait a second. When is the show tomorrow? The show's planned for 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern time, so 2 hours early, because I have to catch a flight. So we'll do a quick show tomorrow at 1 p.m., a news show, and then on Thursday will be touch and go. It depends whether I have time, exactly what's going on. When I'm going to be in New York on Thursday. I'll be traveling from Philadelphia to New York on a wonderful train system. So I'm hoping to get New York in time to do a show. I've got a dinner in the evening, so I can't do it in the evening. We'll see if it works out. Otherwise, I hope to do a show on Saturday. All right, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Oh, Tessa, did you watch any of... what's the question? Did you watch any of the Outlander series, 30-Second Opinion? I watched the beginning. I watched a few chapters of the first season, a few episodes of the first season. I couldn't get into it. I know a lot of people who love the series, who think it's fantastic, but I didn't find it interesting enough, or I know it's very romantic in sense of love, but I just couldn't buy into the premise and couldn't get into the relationships. The characters didn't interest me enough, but that's just me. I know a lot of people who really, really loved it. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.